Well, that was definitely an interesting episode. I feel that there's a lot of controversy around that episode. I believe there's a lot of things that a lot of people want to say about that episode. The only thing I want to say straight up is that I feel like we all just need to understand, this is just a TV show, guys. It's just a story that we're here to just enjoy, okay? Just imagination. We're just here to enjoy, watch it, just trying to take it all in as a subjective thing, just enjoy it or hate it as much as you want. But, whatever you want is whatever you want about it. Christian, I want to ask actually, what about this? What word would you sum up last episode as? It's a tough one. What word would you sum it up as?
Wow.
Yeah. On the spot. Here we are.
I don't want to say disappointing.
Say whatever you want. Whatever you want. We're just here to talk about it. We're not here to fucking, if we're going to critique the shit out of it, we're going to critique the shit out of it. But if we're just here to talk about whatever. If you want to say it's disappointing, it's disappointing. But if there's something else that you think it fits, or what you think it fits anyway, not like the overall sort of what everyone else thinks.
Mind blown.
Okay, all right, that's good enough.
And that can be left up to interpretation.
Yes, that can be left up into interpretation. I would say, if it was one word, I would say loss. I think loss is a good word. Okay. It has a bit of you can interpret it however you want. It could be lost in the sense of what the fuck just happened, lost, or lost in the sense that a lot of people are saying now Game of Thrones has lost all of its momentum and everything, or whatever the shit it could mean. But lost, I think, is a good word. I feel like it's a good word. But I believe we'll get straight into it. Well, I think we should clearly start from the beginning, because that's where it starts. So, yeah, Varys, good on you, Varys.
Starting off at Dragonstone.
Starting off at Dragonstone, we see Varys is writing a note, and we see clearly it's talking about Aegon Targaryen, Jon Snow, talking about him being the rightful heir, and who knows if he sent it or whatever. Not sure if he sent it, but he wrote it, so I guess we can kind of assume he might have sent it. I don't know. But eventually a girl comes in, a little girl, one of his little birds, I believe, talks about, Dany's not eating, and she's trying to, give her food and stuff like that. But, it's sort of at first is like, what the fuck are you talking about? But then I feel like it's kind of obvious what the point of that was. When Varys says, the greater the risk, the greater the reward, and talks about trying to do it at supper time or whatever like that. I think it's kind of obvious that he was trying to poison her. I feel like that's what it was, that he was trying to poison her, to kill her or whatever. It could have been a poison to do something else, but because the way that the girl was saying stuff, she's sort of she's talking about all the guards are watching her, the soldiers, sorry, and she's trying to be super sneaky and stuff like that. So yeah, but yeah, Varys sort of he's doing what the fuck ever it takes, as he says in the last episode and literally every other episode. However, he has I saw a thing, it's there's a picture of him and he's got one of those those giant finger things you see at football games and stuff like that says you're number one. It says he does it for the kingdom or some shit it's for the kingdom and not for the queen and stuff like that. And he's basically he's been saying that a lot in these past episodes, and obviously that's his whole mantra and everything. But yeah, we see him sort of disappointed clearly, and then it sort of goes on ahead, and then we get a bit of dialogue between Jon and Varys as they're walking up onto the beach. And Varys is clearly trying to persuade Jon to be you should probably take the throne. You'll probably be a better person on the throne. And Varys talks about cause I don't know how many he said, but he's been with a lot of kings and queens. So, but the way he says is you'd kind of expect that maybe he would know who would be a good king, considering he's been with 5 or whatever many people, right? So when he talks about that, trying to take for Jon to take the throne, sort of like, well, maybe he should, but who knows? And then Jon sort of just says the classic line that he's always said, "She's my queen." That's it, really. But you can
essentially Jon is Daenerys'.
Yeah, he's bitch. So
yeah,
her bitch. Yeah. But yeah, like, and then Tyrion. We see the Tyrion walking into whatever war room it was with Dany there, and there we see like the inclination of sort of like the sort of what is it? Sort of like, what's the word? Sort of just the hair's sort of all messy. You can see all the hair's messy.
Yeah, because the hair is unbraided.
Yeah, the hair's unbraided. She's like leaning on like a pillar.
Because of the whole failure thing with the Dothrakis.
Oh yeah, shit.
When they take a great loss,
Shit, I did not take that in consideration. Yeah, maybe that's what she did. But she eventually put them back on, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, yeah, that's a good link there. But yeah, like she's like leaning on like a pillar, and you can see sort of just her demeanor. That's like, it's not like how she is before. She's sort of just like straight posture, sort of very commanding, very sort of almost this very queen vibe essentially. And here it's almost like there's people like, she's not like sitting up curled up in a corner, but it's still like that, almost like that crazy person sort of vibe when you see her like that. You see her like her face in the darkness and the light sort of just shining, and you see sort of her tired eyes. You just see like all the sort of the facial expressions of just almost like I don't know what to call it, but just sort of the way you look at it, the facial expression of her just being sort of, she's not there in a sense, really. Like it's not who we've come to really see as most of the time, right? We've seen her as this different sort of, almost this commanding sort of, she's always there, this presence sort of thing. But here it's almost, she's sort of like not really there, and it's like someone else almost, in a sense, if you get what I mean. But again, this is sort of like, obviously now, which we'll talk about later, is that transition to the Mad Queen. I want to talk about that more later.
Yeah.
I feel like what I do want to say with the Mad Queen thing is, I feel like obviously the Mad Queen is meant to correlate back to the Mad King, but I don't feel like it necessarily has to, because it's just, I understand the title is meant to be derived from that, but Mad doesn't necessarily mean one thing, so I want to talk about that later though. So yeah, we see her sort of just this sort of disheveled, that's a good word, sort of just her demeanor and everything. And man, Tyrion fucks up so much. He's fucked up so much, He's just, he's been the worst advisor ever. I swear to God. Everything he's done, he's just fucked up. He's just like, when Dany, the first thing she says is like, someone's betrayed me, and then he's like, yeah. He just confirms it, just sort of like, yeah. Keeps just saying yeah to everything. He's like, yeah, you're terrible. What the fuck? You're so bad. And then, yeah, she says that Jon's betrayed her, but then Tyrion tells her the truth, which is, well, yeah, the truth is about Varys is the one who basically knows it all now, and now a lot of other people are going to know because clearly he's going to be fucking sending it everywhere and everything. But yeah, we see then Tyrion sort of, when he tells Dany about Varys, talking about how he was the other one essentially he told, and how they know that he isn't the most trustworthy individual. He's like, he says, I can't remember what he exactly says, but he says it's like too late now, essentially, and she just says yes, which clearly means sort of like Varys' time's up, essentially, because of obviously now he's told her the truth. She's like, oh, so he's the one who's betrayed, so she's gonna go kill him, essentially. And then yeah, the time ticks, and then soon we see Varys is in his room again, writing another note, but then he burns it. We're not too sure what the note was. Maybe it's another, like, saying Jon's the heir. Then he burns it, puts it in a little pot. Then he takes off all his jewellery, for whatever reason. And then the Unsullied come and arrest him. And they slowly take him outside. I thought they were going to take him to, like, in the first season when they burned all the old gods. I think it's all the old gods or whatever. When Stannis Baratheon was there. You know, when they have all like the people on the funeral part. When they're
Oh
burning
yeah,
people,
when Melisandre like
burning people.
sacrificed those
Yeah.
people.
I
Yeah.
thought that's what
Yeah.
was gonna happen for her initially. Like, thinking is like maybe he's gonna be burned on there, but I sort of thought about it. I was like, they kind of have already something that can burn the shit out of anything. So, and then we clearly see Varys is brought there. But I just want to say, like, Varys, you could just tell, like, we know Varys sort of this, like, the way he is. He's not like fearful or anything. He's not like scared per se of anything. He sort of has a very controlled, like, presence around him. But when we see him being brought up to Dany, we could just see, like, through his eyes and just through his, like, the facial expression, just like the fear of him, just the like a scare. He's just scared of obviously what's gonna happen, because he knows that he's gonna die now. Essentially, he knows he doesn't know he's screwed up, but he knows that time is up essentially.
Yeah,
then,
like I loved like that. I did like that. I love that scene actually.
Yeah,
Because
I really love that. Yeah.
I loved like that exchange between Tyrion and
Oh yeah, when they talked.
Varys.
Yeah.
Like when he was like, yeah, I hope I'm wrong.
But then, like, yeah, even Tyrion
But-
sort of just, like, he kind of hopes he is too, obviously. But
Yes.
I
yeah.
like that. There's like,
Fortunately, no, he was right.
well, we don't know exactly. Maybe things
Well-
might turn around. But wait, we'll do this first. But
Yeah.
so with Varys, when Varys and Tyrion, they say, which is it sort of makes sense. Obviously, when Varys says like goodbye, old friend, and like you think about it, Tyrion and Varys have probably been the closest friends, and Varys is probably Tyrion's closest friend. In reality,
Yeah.
when you think about it, besides like maybe Sansa and his brother Jaime, Varys is probably the closest other person who's been his like closest ally and friend. He's helped, because remember, he's helped him in everything. He helped him get out of King's Landing.
Yeah.
And basically brought him in essentially. But yeah, sort of this, yeah, like this friendship now is just, it's over. Fuck. I hate that. I hate it. And then we just see Dany just sort of stand forward with Jon next to her and all the Unsullied as they're like surrounding Varys, but then they move away from behind him and they move towards Dany, and I'm sort of like, what the fuck are they doing that for? And then we see Drogon's head slowly appear behind Dany, and Dany's just sort of like, she condemns or sentences Varys to death. No trial, no nothing. Straight up to death.
Yeah.
But again,
It only took her a minute as well.
I took her a minute.
And like Drogon, when he came in, honestly, he looked so terrifying. Like
He
when
looks
like
fucking
him,
freaky as fuck.
like I would have like
Seeing
bloody like died just looking at him.
Yeah,
honestly.
he's like, I think that's probably one of the first times we've ever really seen. Well, we've seen the might of Drogon, but just seeing his face and just seeing sort of like when you think of a dragon, this is what you think of a dragon. The face, the sort of it's almost like if you watch Drogon, and goes for any dragon, you can see almost like a joy behind them. There's like a joy that they have when they're like gonna kill someone. Any dragon sort of, and I think that's like a perfect example of a dragon just sort of, obviously he's commanded by Dany, but still just sort of looking at him, he's almost like smiling in a sense as he's gonna burn Varys. It's sort of like he takes pleasure in killing things, obviously, but it's just that presence of a dragon, that fear, that frightful presence that we get from an audience perspective is just like superb, because we just see, like, we don't even see his entire body, we just see his head just appear out of the darkness.
Yeah, but that's all you really need to see, isn't
That's
it?
the thing. That's all you need. You don't need to see everything because you know he is literally there.
He
is
is
just there.
massive.
He is
just
fucking huge. He is massive.
Powerful, built, and he like just burns
He
Varys.
just burns Varys to a crisp
in a
instantly.
matter of seconds.
Yeah.
You don't even hear Varys' scream.
Yeah, I know. You
Just-
don't even hear it.
Yeah, it's just like whoop,
And
done,
Just like
that.
you can hear the crackling and everything. Just sort of, oh god. And then they leave and oh god, I can't. Fuck. Varys is gone. He's just gone. But again, this is what you said last time, and this is what happened was that like if he betrayed her, he's gonna die, and she's basically stuck to her word that Varys, he betrayed her, and now he's dead. So I sort of thought maybe you shouldn't have killed him. He was probably the most powerful person in Westeros, really. He's known
Yeah.
like the past 5 or so kings. He probably knows everything there is about Westeros, like essentially most of the most important things. Now he's dead, so that's
Like,
cool.
I think, like, we all knew that Peter Baelish was the top number one influencer throughout the entire show,
Yeah,
but Varys was definitely number two.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
he
definitely.
changed a lot of events. Like, without him, things would have gone very differently throughout all
Well,
eight
yeah,
seasons.
like it goes back to his name, the Spider. He literally plays
Yeah,
in everything. His legs are everywhere. I like that the spiders are really nice. Like Spy Master name. Really like that.
yeah.
But then we see Dany is back in Dragonstone as she's sitting next to a fire, and she gives Grey Worm. I believe it's like it's Miss Andre's what do you call it? It's like a
Collar.
collar bracelet thing or whatever you call it, collar guard or whatever.
It's
It's the
it's
one
just a
that
it's just a collar,
yeah,
like slave collar.
it was a slave collar thing, and I was like, I thought, why the fuck are you keeping that? It seems like a really bad thing to keep. And then obviously they
Yeah,
throw
I
it into the
know.
fire. I feel like that's sort of, if anything, that's just a reminder of how terrible the past is. You don't want to remember that. You want to remember all the good things, which is more or less like, well, she didn't really have anything else, but just the thought. But yeah, obviously I
The
thought of that.
memories.
The memories, yeah, the memories are all that count. Ooh. And then we see John arrive, and then we see Dany speaks in, I don't know what is it, Old Valerian. She speaks to Grey Worm.
I'm not sure. I think so. Actually, yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if
It's
it
either
is.
it's either old Valyria or high Valyria.
Yeah, and she talks about. She tells him his name. I think that's his name.
Yeah,
It's
I
Torgo.
think.
I've got it here. Torgo Nodho. Torgo
Yeah, I
Nodho.
totally forgot that he actually had another name.
Did he? I didn't
Like,
even know he had that name.
I think. Yeah, I think.
I just know we've known him by Grey Worm because that's what he first told her.
I think. Yeah, I think that's what he just wanted to be called Grey Worm.
Well, yeah,
You
because I
know.
guess that's what he's always been known as.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I swear I don't know. There probably has come up before, but I can't remember it ever coming up. So it's definitely in.
Like, I can't really remember either,
Yeah,
but I feel like it's in the back of
it
my
probably
mind
has.
around season 3 and 4.
It probably is
You
somewhere in
know,
there. Probably is somewhere there. But then yeah,
but
we
it only
see.
would have been mentioned once.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, because yeah, he didn't really want that name, I guess. But then yeah, we see John come down, and we finally see this sort of, now obviously Dany knows that John betrayed her, and then they're talking essentially, and everything is just going fucking downhill. It is literally just on a spiral downwards. Like nothing is going up. Everything is
yeah.
literally going down. So she
And
talks
after
about
after everything,
yeah,
she even still tries to,
to be
you
with
know,
John. Yeah,
to be with him.
but like
But
he's just too
he's
much of a fucking honorable man.
yeah, but also I
He's
mean, like, the whole aunt nephew thing. I mean,
oh yeah, I think that's definitely like yeah that
I
thing
think
when it
I
comes
think
into play.
definitely with John's character, he's like, yeah, that's
That's
weird.
really fucking weird. Yeah, I guess that is definitely a big thing of it. It's sort of like this is kind of really weird. But he still says, but obviously like everything he says, I feel like it's almost like a response now. It doesn't have a meaning when he says she is his queen and he loves her. I feel like it's not even like a thing he also like even has like a proper meaning now behind. I feel like it's almost just like a programmed response, if you get what I mean. Because everything she says, he just says that, Whenever she says like everything basically about Varys and everything about what's happened, and all he says is that you're my queen, and stuff like that. I feel like it's almost just a programmed response in the sense that he's not thinking about it, more or less. He doesn't have a meaning behind it. He just says it now. It feels like it doesn't really have any weighting per se, if you get what I mean. Because
Yeah.
he continually
Like,
says
'cause
it. But yeah.
in my opinion, their relationship, I never honestly shipped in the first place because it didn't really make sense. Like, I said this like before the start of the season, just like throughout season 7, it was just rushed.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like, they didn't really have time to like actually,
yeah.
like, it
They
just
don't really-
happened.
Yeah. No, yeah, I understand.
Like, it's not like Jamie and Cersei or Jamie and Bran or like Arya and Gendry.
Yeah. No,
It's
that's definitely
literally
true.
like, it's just been like, okay, it's just dropped and like, here it is.
Yeah.
So I feel like the writing wise, it's just I didn't really have much empathy towards that relationship to begin with.
All right. Yeah. No, I see that. I definitely see that with.
Yeah,
But like again, yeah.
and
Also the.
that's why I think it's like this right
Yeah.
now, because it doesn't have meaning,
Yeah.
you know.
And I think yeah, like obviously when you think about it, they got to sort of take that into consideration. They've only got a couple of seasons, obviously, to write this entire Game of Thrones thing, right? So they can't put everything in. But like they obviously put that in there for a reason, right? They didn't put that in there just to fuck about. And like I guess all this stuff basically sort of, yeah, I guess it kind of justifies it in the sense that it was rushed, and this is the consequences of it being rushed. That there isn't a really like proper connection in like compared to everyone else, as you said. And I definitely think, yeah, that's definitely like a really good, I guess, a good way of doing it without sort of having to make another 2 seasons focusing on their relationship, instead of just sort of, they're just sort of tying it up in a sense. But it doesn't mean that like, who knows, like by the end of it all, it could all be better, but I doubt it. But it's also just like, yeah, just like, for example, yeah, like when John first met Ygritte all that time ago, right?
Mm.
And that had like
See, that one was good.
yeah, and they had like plenty of time to work and everything, and that was like his first love and everything like that. And the thing with Dany
Honestly,
is,
I think that was my favorite
yeah,
throughout the entire series, even now.
I definitely think there's also, well, this sort of goes into everything, but the other big thing now is like when Jorah died, and she sort of now like had to think about everything that, because obviously the only reason why Jorah was with her was because he loved her, but she never returned it, and I think that's definitely another big thing to it. And she's sort of now understanding what it was like, almost, as Jorah. But she's different to Jorah, who's sort of always there. She doesn't. She almost more or less will be there, but she's like, she's not going to persist maybe forever in trying to get Jon's affection. But we'll know. But then she sort of talks about how Jon is known by other people, how everyone here loves Jon. Well, they don't all love him. Only people in the north love him because they know who he is. But then she talks about how the only thing that people know about her here is about fear. And then she talks about basically, well, they basically, you know, they try and get back together, but then Jon just, he can't do it. Obviously it's like everything that's happened, and obviously that relationship is just like, it's a bit too awkward. And then she just says, let it be fear. Which is just like, yeah, it's like it's a very notable quote through it, and it's also like it's like a confirmation. I feel like it's almost like a confirmation for her, obviously, because it says "let it be fear," so she's thought about it. But it's almost like, yeah, she's just confirmed to herself that she has to do whatever it takes. That's endgame stuff, but you know, she sort of has to do anything really to get what she wants now. Then we get to a scene later on as Tyrion, Dany, and that they're in their throne room essentially, and Tyrion's trying to convince Dany not to fucking kill everyone in King's Landing. And, you know, you're there for a minute sort of thinking, yeah, maybe at first she doesn't seem like she's gonna take it in, but then Tyrion's sort of like, at least let them, if they ring the bells, you know, don't kill them all. And then she doesn't say anything, she's just sort of slightly nods. And we're at that point sort of like, okay, maybe she won't kill them all. That's a good, you know, that's a good starting point. And she talks about how, you know, mercy is their strength. And I feel like I'm going to come back to this. What she says is that this mercy idea that she talks about it in the sense that she's going to, you know, the mercy is her strength right now. And this strength of mercy is going to basically make everyone in the future not like remember of all this tyrant stuff. They're not going to not remember, but they're not going to like be under the influence of a tyrant. So what she's sort of, I guess, trying to say there is that whatever she's going to do the next day is going to supplant essentially the future of Westeros. They're either going to like, obviously what happened, she fucking destroyed King's Landing, and I feel like there's more symbolic meaning to that actually. But I feel like also that the idea that her entire like goal obviously is to break the wheel and everything, but she's trying to do it, as she says, constantly tries to tell herself that she's doing it for the future, not for now, because nothing's gonna happen in a heartbeat. She kind of has to take that into consideration, is that nothing's gonna change in an instant. She may kill Cersei, but nothing's gonna change in an instant because of what she's seen, that no one knows her really. The people who know her fear her, and she's got to understand that it's gonna be much harder, and the only way that she's gonna be able to do it is by whatever decision she makes is the one that's going to make the future generations of the world no longer be under the grip of a tyrant, you could say. And then she tells about, they're getting all the armies ready. And then Tyrion is told about his brother, who was caught. And then, after that, skipping ahead a bit, is that they land at King's Landing, and we see... before that, we see... in King's Landing, we see all the defences sort of getting ready for, the first bit of the defences, where we see all the people moving in from the outside of the gates and then going in. And we first get a glimpse of, some characters we were going to follow out. At first, we didn't really care about them, really. It was just a mother and a daughter as they're walking in, who, again, we see later and have more significance.
Yes.
And then we see, and the music playing, it's very it's not like a happy music in any sense. It's just I feel like it's like death. It's like a death song. I feel like it was a death song playing. It was death's impending doom that was about to come on them. About to rain down hell from above. And obviously that happens.
Yeah,
but
also with the music, I'm not sure when exactly this happened, but did you notice that there was a callback to season 6, episode 10, with that song Light of the Seven?
When?
So...
Because I can't remember what it was.
I think it might be later in the episode, but it's definitely
There's a lot of music that is that reflects sort of all the other earlier seasons and episodes, because there are some that I know.
Do you remember Light of the Seven? So season 6, episode 10, when Cersei blows up the Citadel.
Oh.
Yeah, did you... Yeah, that came on again. And
shit.
it was I
tried to listen.
It was insinuating. I felt like that was a hidden message. It was foreshadowing the destruction of King's Landing.
Well, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of foreshadowing, obviously.
Yeah.
And the music, definitely. Yeah, all the music that played, I can't remember what the music was actually, the one that you're talking about, but listening to the music, I don't know all the music, but if you listen to it before the fight happens, it's not it always happens as usually when there's a big battle, it's not going to be happy music, but there's almost a different tone to the music.
Yeah.
It's not a lost battle. It's a lost war or anything. It's more, actually, that's a better way of saying it, is that it's not a battle that's going to be won or lost. It's a war that's going to be won or lost. Which a war is a lot of battles. So this war, that sort of the music tone was more focused around that than sort of just a traditional big battle scene. Moving ahead, we see Tyrion arrive with Jon on the banks of King's Landing. Tyrion asked Davos for a favour, which I believe was him getting a dinghy out towards the back of King's Landing. I believe that's what it was, and helping him get Jaime out. And then we see Arya and Sandor walk through the camp. This pair together as they're walking through. And there's just whoever this fucking Northman there trying to stop them, but
I love that scene. He was just I'll have to ask my captain, and he's just you do that.
You do that, and they just walk past. Wait, what the fuck?
You can't stop them. They're too badass.
Yeah, that's too badass. I thought he's a Northman, isn't he? He looked like a Northman. Wouldn't he recognize Iron?
Yeah, I know.
Whatever. The hero of Winterfell and everything. All those rumors be spread.
I know.
Who knows? Then we see Jaime and Tyrion meet up. Tyrion manages to convince the Unsullied to move after saying stuff about being in a skull or some shit like that.
Yeah, he was trying to do the language, but they just gave up. He was just we speak the common tongue.
I feel like all those funny moments was just there to help us more or less.
Just to cope.
They felt to cope with what was going to happen. And I definitely think, that was definitely a interesting one. But then we see Tyrion and Jaime are in talking together. Jaime talks about him being the stupidest Lannister, because of his golden arm. He could have taken it off or whatever, but nope, he didn't do that. Fucking so dumb. And then they're talking about this, which we talked about last time, is that there's still that conflict going on in his head of Jaime still wanting to be with Cersei. And I feel I feel like that scene there supplanted what Jaime was actually going to do. Obviously, he was going to get Cersei out. That was his plan.
Yeah.
But I feel like that supplanted the idea that this is who he is. He's with her. That there's no other Jaime. Whatever other Jaime we're thinking about, that's not him. This Jaime is the Jaime that we now know. The one who's going in to save Cersei. Not to save anyone else, just to save her. That's all he's doing. Obviously then to save everyone else, but that's his whole point. He wants to be with her. And I feel like I understand now, like, how everyone was talking about last episode is that, fuck, why did he leave? He's just ruined his entire character arc. But it's just, that's his character. His entire emphasis of his character, that's who he is. He's a morally grey character who has obviously leaned more to the bad side than to the good side. And he's come to terms with the idea that he's never ever going to be good. And he's just going to try and make the most of his last times, with Cersei and everything like that. And then Tyrion lets him go. But it's such a touching scene.
Yeah, it was so heartfelt. Like, he was... I actually almost cried when I was... It's like...
Yeah, the second time when I watched it, because, like, obviously I knew what was going to happen. I was just like, oh, no,
yeah, I know.
this can't be happening.
You were the only one who cared about me, who didn't treat me like a monster.
Think he was a monster.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
And then Tyrion started crying. I was like, oh, give him a hug.
Oh, you can't do this. It's so sad. I hate it. But that's why I love watching these things. They're just so good. And they just they get you so enthralled with it. And, like, I like that. There is, like, because we kind of knew about that, but it's almost like Tyrion sort of almost confessing, almost in a sense, that everything that he's ever done is because of, well, not everything he's ever done, but everything that sort of led him here was because of Jaime helping him. And it's almost just sort of like a confession and confirmation in a sense that, without each other, they wouldn't really be who they were, even though they weren't the most greatest of people, they weren't the most goodest people, I guess is the way of saying it. But then and they sadly say their farewells and they go, and that's what happens. Then the day arrives, the next day arrives as the pre-battle preparations begin. We see the Iron Fleet awaiting outside, massive fucking fleet still, waiting out there with their armed ballistas, armed to the teeth. We get to see a lot of people inside King's Landing trying to get inside, trying to, be safe as the Lannister army are helping them. And I feel like we're given a sense of almost like a sympathy sort of vibe from them, is that the Lannisters are helping everyone. They're trying to get everyone to safety, and sort of the way that we're positioned in it, in the sense is that we're trying to be like innocent people, we don't want them to die. They're just innocent people who are living here. And we see them trying to get pushed in, and then we see the Golden Company, man, these who we've come to believe are these mighty soldiers, these people who never break a contract. They walk out as we see Jaime walk in just before they do. They walk outside the gates for some stupid reason. I don't know why they would do that.
Yeah.
It feels like a stupid tactical decision, considering the whole point of a wall is so then you can sit behind the wall, not in front of the wall. Whatever. We see all the 20,000 men out there. And then we see Dany's army arriving on the horizon, really, right outside. The Northmen, the Unsullied, House Aaron, Dothraki. I still don't understand how they still have such a big army.
Yeah, I know. I was surprised about the amount of Dothraki there were, because I thought there was like a couple that survived, but there were apparently I don't know, like at least a group. Like
there was a funny thing I was reading. It's like some guy put it on like Reddit. He's talking about Episode 5 patch notes, and he's talking about the Dothraki. They're talking about how people thought it's like patch notes for a game, essentially. And he's talking about, this will go into it later, that the Ballista were too OP last episode, so we've debuffed them for Episode 5. They're talking about how the Unsullied and the Dothraki, they seemed a bit under strength. We decided to bring more in. And they're talking about all this other shit, sort of like, like reading it's like, that's sort of what happens. But the only explanation I can think about is, I said this last time, is that maybe they had like reserves. That's what I think, is they had reserves that weren't at the Battle of Winterfell. Because they understood that even if they had, like, if they won that Battle of Winterfell, they would need an army to take on Cersei. So my only thought there is that they had some reserve somewhere. However, they never talked about it. They didn't have it on the battle plans or anything, so Who knows?
Like,
For all I know, it was patch notes that they're just like, yeah, we decided to give them more.
I mean, that's in my
so they
opinion.
weren't under
In my
strength.
opinion, I feel like that is really the thing, because I mean, in my just like I know everything like is subjective and all this stuff, but like just
Yeah, here we are. Yeah,
in my opinion, I feel
yeah. Here we
like
go. Fuck
season eight
Netflix.
in general
Yeah.
could have been a lot
Yeah.
better. I feel like they maybe could have used more time to develop it a bit more and not rush things, you know, because it is the last season and you don't want to make any mistake. And I just feel, and and I am saying that, but I'm also saying that I still love each episode anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Like I still enjoy it, but I feel like deep down I do feel a bit disappointed in a way.
Okay. Yeah. As I was saying before, I'm not gonna hate on your whatever your decision is on it, and like, yeah, it's all subjective in a sense, but I understand that definitely that point. Obviously the biggest reason why it's a short season is because of how much the budget was. Obviously they don't have $1 billion, so unless it was $1 billion, but whatever. They didn't have a ridiculous amount of money to make 10 episodes. Really, I bet you if they had enough money, they would have made 10 episodes. But because of the scale of each episode, I feel like obviously that's the reason why everything was much shorter. And again, I go back to this idea, and I'll talk about this again later, is that I feel like the writers had the biggest task, they had the hardest task this entire season, because they had to bear the brunt of everything. They had to bear the brunt of being able to write a shorter story that usually is 10 episodes into 6 episodes, trying to basically type every big loose end and trying to make everyone happy. And sadly, when you've got all those factors, they're not all going to work out. And I think that's it's just a matter of fact of life. What I will say, and I'm going to say this again explicitly at the end, obviously Game of Thrones is one of the biggest TV shows in the past decade or so, right? That's definitely a given. There's definitely a lot of other TV shows that have come out recently, but nothing has come to par with Game of Thrones. And there's one thing that I'm sort of looking at, and this is something I've talked about both in, I think, maybe last episode, and I talked about in the Avengers Endgame stuff, is that this also ties into Endgame. Endgame and Marvel stuff is big stuff, right? We've watched them all. They've grown for 10 years or so. Both of these things have grown for 10 or whatever years. They've had plenty of time to build characters, build everything, build foundations. But the way I like looking at it, I feel like more or less, as much as these things are amazing, and they're like, if anything, I feel like the best way that we look at these things is they're not this ultimatum in a sense. They're not the all-in, end-all sort of situation, right? They're not this sort of like final thing that is meant to happen. And what I'm trying to say there is that Game of Thrones, Avengers, so the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I feel like more or less they are more of a foundation to build upon new stories upon. Because, think about it, this only took 10 years to make, and this took 10 years to make within, with all this new technology that we've all had, all these crazy good actors, all these crazy good writers and everything, right? We've had plenty of time to build on this. And the way I like looking at this is that as much as, everyone talks about, and no one's ever going to really, not everyone's going to super enjoy this latest Game of Thrones episode. And it probably has completely affected everyone's perception on Game of Thrones, because any story, the ending is the most crucial part of a story, because that's the whole reason why you read the story. Obviously it's a journey, but it's also the destination. But what I'm talking about is that with Game of Thrones or Marvel, any of these big things, these big series, any like big budget films or TV shows are more or less setting the groundwork for future TV shows or future big movies. I'm just going to say this right now, I can guarantee within the next 50 years or so, there's going to be something that's even bigger than both of these things combined.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I can guarantee there's something going to be bigger than this. And I feel like I'll be there, and when we're there, 50 years time, watching this massive, big budget things.
I don't want to visually think about me 50 years older.
No, but like, I'm not saying, like, in the future. Let's just say in the future.
Sure.
Being there is that, thanks to things like Game of Thrones, thanks to things like Marvel, we've learnt so much from those things that have done so well, and clearly some things that haven't done as well. But in that time, we've managed to make these I'm not going to say much better things, but things that are so good in their own unique way. You know, I just like the thing is that more or less, like Game of Thrones and all this stuff, isn't this sort of end-all, like, fantasy sort of, like, story genre thing. It's a starting point, I feel like. It's a starting point into a new era of sort of story writing in the media industry. It's more or less setting the groundwork for everything else that is to come. That doesn't mean that it's going to be, like, the worst of the pack, but I feel like, and I think everyone can agree on this, is Game of Thrones has had, like, amazing success. It's done very well, it's had a massive following, and it's proven that anything like this big can be made and have such a big following. But that's a bit of a rant there, and I want to go back into the series on the actual episode. But if you get what I mean, is that just think about this as sort of like, if like even if you don't like it, even if you know that it was so short that they weren't managing to get everything in, is I feel like maybe, I don't want to force my opinion on someone else, but if I can give some consideration, is that think about it more or less as that this is the foundation for like more things to come, more like good, unique things that are to come. That's something I'm gonna say for now, and I'll say that again at the end.
Okay.
Back onto the actual
little
episode.
rant there.
little rant there. There'll be a couple of those. Then we see the entire thing getting, essentially the entire defenses already. Yeah, we see the Unsullied outside with the Northmen, the Dothraki. And we can see, like, on everyone's faces, well, everyone inside the keeps, there's sort of the face of, like, panic is beginning to form on them all and everything like that. It's almost as if, well, it's not almost as if, it is, that the pace changes dramatically quickly. Yeah. As we see on the Iron Fleet, where we see Euron is looking into the sky, and obviously we heard the speculation. I thought it had been stone dragons, or, you know, it could have been more dragons, or it could have been Bran actually doing something with crows, which I was a bit disappointed in, but sadly not. No, it was instead just Drogon flying, diving straight down to death, essentially. Diving as fast as possible, and absolutely demolishing, absolutely destroying the entire Iron Fleet in a matter of moments. It was like, patch notes. Literally, Drogon, like, I like to think it was like this burning meteor that came down to strike and kill everything. It literally obliterated the entire fleet in a matter of moments. We then see, like, then there's this, obviously we see all the ballista things, I'll talk about this in a second, but we see all the ballista shooting. Obviously they're all missing, but we see just this epic scale of, we see this fleet is just reduced to cinders and ash, and we see, obviously I feel like this is such a weird, like, I don't understand how the fuck he survived. Euron is on one of the ships, and Drogon's coming to fly down, and he's like, you know, turn the ballista around, you know, and then Drogon comes down, and you could just see he's like, oh fuck, I gotta jump, and you see him jump, but then, like, how the fuck's he survived? The flame hit him, he just jumped, and the flame was right there. The flame
literally engulfs him, and then it cuts. That's the last time we see him until later in the episode.
Till later on,
and we're like, what
man,
the fuck?
I forgot to say, I think episode 3, and I might have said it, but I feel like we need to really understand, we need to give more praise to this specific thing. I think we all need to give a hand sort of reminder of just how amazing this thing is. We all have to give it to plot armor, you know, plot armor, seriously. Plot armor is the savior of the day, honestly. It is the best thing you could ever ask for. And you know what? Just having plot armor is the best. You know, just imagining, just holding... God is literally putting a protective shield around these characters as hell is breaking loose around them. I love to think of how story writers they do this. Like, do they specifically sort of just like, okay, we're going to give him this invulnerable shield that he will never die for this entire episode. You know, he'll have plot armor.
Some people might say that's
so he
just
can
lazy
survive.
writing.
I feel like there's a difference between when you think about it as plot armor for lazy. I feel like there's differences when you can use plot armor. Plot armor in the sense that you don't want to kill your character off because it's just going to make everything stupidly, like, unreasonable. Like, everything that is going to happen makes no sense. Meaning in the sense that the character is actually integral to everything. Then there's also the sense of, the laziness plot armor is that you just don't want this character to die for whatever reason, or you just don't want them to die for, like, your convenience.
I just hate how
obviously,
this plot armor totally ignores last episode's, like, ordeal. It's like, okay,
yes,
this happens now.
Actually, I'll talk about that now. I think we can talk about that. Okay, we'll talk about that now. Ballista. As I said, patch notes. Reading patch notes. Version 8.5. They're talking about. So the Ballista were a bit too OP in last episode, so we're going to debuff them a little bit. Maybe make them slower at firing, or just put incompetent people to shoot them.
Stormtroopers on them.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah,
they just hired a lot of stormtroopers. I bet they're cheap, so you can hire them. But every ballista, I think they call it scorpions. Sorry, the scorpions. Every scorpion was destroyed within literally, like, in terms of, like, the actual film, the TV show, was like less than like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It's like Tybun goes up to Cersei, he's like, all the fucking scorpions are dead. All my work is just gone.
He's like, oh shit.
They had like 5 ships, and they had like, I'm probably going to over exaggerate this, but I feel like there's like at least like over 50 to 100 of those scorpions in King's Landing. Probably a lot more.
Yeah,
they
in
killed
King's
one
Landing.
dragon,
and then there's even more on the fleet.
Yeah, and they had, in last episode they had 5 or 6, and they killed one dragon.
So, like, I mean, like, I'm just saying, like, you're telling me that out of all of those fucking things, not one shot
possibility
hits the dragon.
Hit him, yeah.
Like,
I think definitely that's a obviously plot armor thing, but I definitely think that definitely took it away, and that definitely made that entire episode last episode like just like stupid. Then they made last episode stupid and this episode stupid because of that. The only thing I'm going to say that might not make it justifiable, but the only thing I do want to say is that, well, this is sort of 3 different factors when it comes into this. So these scorpion things, they take a bit of a while to reload, and they take a bit of a while to like actually shoot. And I think they obviously don't shoot at the speed of light, so they have a bit of like, let's just talk about physics in a sense. It's not going to be there in an instant. It's going to take time to actually reach its target. And because this thing is flying, it's a bit harder to shoot it, obviously. The idea that I'm thinking of this is the reason why I feel like, obviously the writers didn't really justify it in a sense why they all missed, but I feel like they tried to at least put it in there, so then like you could at least maybe think about it, but you can't really think about it when Drogon just manages to dodge all of them. But I feel like my sort of thought on it is that in episode 4 is the reason why Rhaegal was killed with 3 shots was because of, obviously he was weakened, and because they were like flying, but they weren't like, they didn't have what's the word for it? Like they didn't have what is it called? Like surrounding awareness, whatever it's called, spatial awareness or whatever it is, like understanding what's going on around you, right? He didn't have that. Both dragons, Drogon and Rhaegal, didn't have that sort of like, they didn't focus on anything else. They just focused on each other for that like episode 4 thing. And so that meant that gave the scorpions an opportunity to shoot them because they were just flying easy targets. And yeah, obviously that all has to go into sort of like, they were doing that for a good shot and everything, but then yeah, we see Rhaegal get shot down, and then we see Drogon try and fly down with Dany as she tries to go to that fleet in Dragonstone, but then she flies away, and she manages to dodge all those ones. And I feel like that, when she was flying towards it and dodged all of them, and Drogon managing to dodge all of them in King's Landing, I feel like the only reason why I can think about it is that because she could see them and because Drogon could see them, they were easier to miss because you knew where they were coming from. That's the only reason why I can think about it, and sort of the only thing that can back this up is that they have super quick reaction times. Like, that's the only other thing, is that Drogon has the quickest reaction times ever, of anything, right? To manage to dodge, like, 10 different arrows at one time. But yeah, I think we can all agree that the blister problem was stupid. It obviously didn't make any sense, and it completely ruined a bit of the battle, really, because, we were sort of expecting them to actually do well.
Because, like...
obviously we didn't want them... But then we didn't want them to happen. We didn't want them to kill Drogon, so that's the good thing. But we didn't want it to be like that way.
Yeah, I think
we didn't want them to just get completely...
I think the main issue with these couple episodes is the fact that, yes, we don't want bad things to happen to characters, but in the logical sense, we want consistency.
Okay, yeah, true, yeah. I think going on to that, a bit of a rant onto that, is I was reading some things about this, and the idea of preconceptions on these episodes, and preconceptions and sort of expectations, for Season 8 in general. I feel like because of everything that's gone on with Game of Thrones, and how, even us, we are victims of this, because we keep speculating how everything will go. And I feel like because we keep speculating, we come up with all these ideas, is that it completely affects our opinion on the film, because we think it might go one way, but it completely goes another way. I've said before, however, I kind of contradict myself, I will say, is that I try my best to not try and sort of talk about things like that, because I'd rather be surprised. However, when it comes to a surprise, you'd like it to be a logical surprise. So you don't want it to be like a surprise that all the blister somehow missed. It could have been that Drogon managed to, like, maybe he did get hit by at least one of them, Even if he got hit, because he's got hit by one of them before, like in the shoulder, and he survived. Yeah. Right? So, and he's a tough-ass dragon, so I feel like even if he got hit by one, he would have fucking still killed them all. I think if he even got hit by at least one, I think I would have been a bit like, okay, at least he got hit once. However, obviously, I think we all wanted that. We didn't want Drogon to die.
Oh, no.
And I feel like that was like the whole thing, is that, like, we didn't kill Drogon, so, like, why the fuck are you all upset?
Yeah.
And stuff like that, is that, but we're all just upset because of just how stupid it sort of it seemed. It was very, like, it's all fabricated, in a sense. It's all fabricated to make Drogon live and kick ass.
Drogon's going to be on the Iron Throne.
But yeah, Drogon's going to be on the Iron Throne. No, we're going to get there, and Ghost is on there.
Yeah.
So Ghost is going to be on there. It's like, I've been waiting. Fuck you, Jon Snow. He's now the Night Wolf. That's what he is. No, but again, with preconceptions and expectations and all that stuff, is that when it comes to expectations, it's the worst thing when you expect things, because you want them to happen. And there's plenty of things that this has happened with. Take, for example, probably the biggest one that has happened within the past 2 years is obviously Star Wars The Last Jedi. Expectations on that were just too high to meet what actually happened, and what happened was obviously, like, it's plain and simple, it was a disaster for the Star Wars fan. But in terms of, like, Game of Thrones, is that the expectations that we all had was that, it wasn't what actually had happened was what we sort of expected, but not the way we expected, if you get what I mean. We wanted these people to live, the ones that lived, but we didn't want them to live that way. We didn't want them to be like that. But all I'm going to say is that we all just need to understand, Game of Thrones is not a happy story at all. And it was always, I feel like it was always going to have not a bad ending, it's sort of just it was never going to have a happily ever after.
Yeah, ending. It's like when Ramsey
that's
said
what
earlier.
Game of Thrones is.
It's like, if you think this has a happy ending, you have been...
You have been paying attention. I think that is just, it is totally...
It sums up the show, I think.
And I think it does, it definitely sums up the show, and I feel like it's just because, it's a subjective thing, is that you want certain things to happen, but they don't happen. And that's what makes you upset, is that, fuck, why didn't Drogon have fucking armor? Or where were fucking, why were my flying elephants? What the fuck is this shit, Maybe they could have had flying elephants to save the day. But that didn't happen. What the fuck with the Golden Company? They were shit. I'll talk about it in a second.
Okay. I'm going to have a full-on rant about the Golden Company in a bit.
But we had all this stuff. But there's a lot of shit that happened. So we'll move on. That's like the second rant, third rant, whatever. Then we see, Drogon absolutely demolish the city's defenses, completely kill all the men on the walls, and destroy all the scorpions. Then we get the scene of the Golden Company out the front, awaiting the armies.
They're looking really
Danny's
good.
army to
They're
attack.
looking
They're looking
ready for
they're
battle.
Looking fucking badass.
You know,
disciplined. They look disciplined. They look powerful. Standing there, they look sort of almost commanding in a sense that they're these powerful
they
mercenaries.
look like they could kill
we're not gonna
all of
fuck
them.
up.
To be honest, the Golden Company.
Yeah, they look pretty well.
Yeah.
I feel like they're like, this looks. Fuck, there's gonna be a tough fight, and we hear what's that noise? Like, sounds like something's like coming up behind us, and then boom, the fucking entire gate gets completely destroyed as we see the entire Golden Company are scattered and run away like little babies.
And
so what's the point of this?
They all just got fucking burnt alive, and it's like, okay, yeah, cool,
what's
man.
This contract thing?
You just brought in.
Yeah, they all died.
It honestly gave me a massive headache just watching. What?
Yeah, I feel like I wanted to see the Golden Company. Golden Company.
Yeah,
the Golden Company.
I wanted to see this awesome fighting style they had, or like, you know.
I feel now this is because this is an expectation. This was the expectation, is that I wanted to see them fight. The reason why I wanted to see them fight because of what everyone was saying was they're saying both armies were equal, even with the dragon.
Yeah.
I feel like they had the wrong scales. They didn't adjust their scales properly. It was actually the King's Landing army was literally just, you know, they were nothing. They were like a piece of feather against the tide of a dragon.
Yeah. Far out, yeah.
They're nothing compared to it. And then we see the carnage unfold as we see the Dothraki be who they are, the ones that we know them for who they really are. They butcher people. They burn down towns.
Yeah, I know.
They're the ones everything we learned about them. There were these killers who went to completely demolish and pillage cities. That's what we knew them for. And this was the first time that we've actually seen them properly do that. When they're screamers, as they just go through and absolutely slaughter
just innocent,
hundreds of people.
You know,
innocent people, innocent at first, and Lannisters at the same time. As we just see these berserkers, these barbarians, be who they are. These just killers, merciless killers. And then we see the Unsullied go in, and then we see the Northmen go in. And I'm going to come back to this point, is that I think I understand why the Northmen continued to fight after what had happened halfway through. The biggest thing I think is that because of the hatred that the Northmen have for the Lannisters, for everything the Lannisters have done to the Starks and everyone in the North, they've ruined the North essentially. They brought Ramsay Bolton and everything into their power. They brought their giant armies. They killed Ned Stark. They killed the Young Wolf and all this other shit, you know? They did all these terrible things to the Northmen. And this was almost like a vengeance for all the Northmen. This was revenge for the Northmen to kill all the Lannisters that they ever saw. This was like what they were here for. I bet you that was one of the big things why they would come here, is to kill Lannisters, because of the hatred that that Northmen have for the Lannisters for what they've done. And I think that is definitely a big factor to what was going to happen later down in the episode. But then we see just Jorah continue to kill thousands of soldiers at first, and we see all the ballista, the scorpions are completely destroyed, and essentially the battle itself of fighting is over within like 5 minutes, and it's sort of just like, it goes to show this balance of power was nothing. There's no balance of power. Dany's army had the upper hand the entire time. King's Landing couldn't stand a chance. We'd heard that King's Landing was this fortress that could never be beaten. It was never taken, and it was taken this time, as clearly the battle was in favor of Dany and her army. And then we see eventually Dany lands on like a tower, and we see her like the Drogon sort of screaming and roaring down at all the innocent people. And we see this madness, like I like to think it's like this madness is running its course through Dany. The state of her face, you could see like the sort of the soot, like the black shit basically all over her face, and you see the anger building up in her as she's looking around, looking at all this entire like hell essentially. And obviously we eventually get to the point where we see the Lannisters drop their weapons as the big Unsullied and Northern army come to meet them, and eventually the Lannisters sort of just drop their weapons, and we're like, oh, Oh, thank
Yeah, I was
fuck.
like, thank
I didn't.
God. I was like, oh,
I was like,
thank
yeah.
you.
I sort of was thinking like, what else are they gonna do for the rest of the episode? I was like, maybe they might still have a bit of a fight. Who knows? I was like, oh, but it looked like it was over. I was like, oh. That was quite a brutal fight, I will say.
Mm.
And then the bells eventually go ringing as they drop their weapons. It's like, oh, good. They said once the bells are ringing, Tyrion's like, tell all the armies to not fight, and we're like, right, this is a good sign. It means that the fighting's over. It means that we can figure out what the fuck's going on. Is Dany gonna just go into the Red Keep and kill Cersei? Oh fuck, we'll figure out. The bells keep ringing, and Dany's sort of just there, sort of looking all over the city, and it's almost as if she knew what she was gonna do this whole time. She knew what she was actually gonna do.
She didn't care. She
didn't care.
She didn't want the bells to ring.
She didn't care, even if it rung. She knew because I feel like when she said, I'm going to say this, I'll talk about this later, is that when she talked about let it be fear, I feel like that's just a confirmation of all her plans now were going to be the most brutal plans that she could think of. And really, she's a Targaryen. Targaryens, when they're violent, we've heard about all these Targaryens as these brutal, not warlords, I guess warlords in a sense, is who they really are. Fire and blood is their fucking motto.
Yeah.
And we get to see the Targaryen at its heart as she completely kills thousands upon thousands of people, of Lannister soldiers, of innocents, of everyone. As we eventually get to see Bran's vision come to life, essentially, so as Drogon is actually flying over the city. We thought it was like Drogon flying, or it could have been, I can't remember his name, but the first guy who came to Westeros, the first Targaryen with his dragons. Like, we thought it was that, but it wasn't that. It was Drogon flying, and that means Bran saw the future. And I feel like this is a bit of a Lord of the Rings vibe here coming through. Actually, it's a Hobbit vibe. I felt like Drogon was almost like a Smaug.
Yeah.
Smaug sort of, it was very that in the desolation of what's it called? No, when the Battle of the Five Armies in The Hobbit, when the dragon sort of just completely lays waste to Lake Town. I think that's what it's called. I felt like that was a complete, not a complete remake, but it was like a complete, like, the similarities in it and the complete destruction we see as we see Drogon just burn thousands of people as they just turn to ash and nothing, and we just see killing everything. And then we see the Unsullied go, firstly, Grey Worm throws his spear at,
the way he did that, though,
general.
I was like, oh shit, like, his facial expression just drops, and he's just like, suddenly, the vengeance in his eyes, he's just like, he literally kicks up his spear, throws it up in the air, catches it, and then fully launches it at this guy. And then all the Lannister army, they're just freaking out,
Yeah, and they're trying to get all their weapons. They're trying to get all their weapons up. Then the Unsullied go in, completely begin to slaughter them as the Northmen join, and we see Jon's loyalty is just tested. He didn't want this to happen, and he's trying to stop his people from attacking, but they're not. As I said before, he's trying to stop the Northmen from attacking, but you can't stop these people whose fury is focused on killing Lannisters because of what Lannisters have done for them. Jon was never part of the wars that happened with the Lannisters. All these Northern men, either their fathers or themselves, were part of the wars with the Lannisters. Yeah. They know what it was like. They knew that when they saw these Lannisters, they were going to kill them for what they've done. And they were not being merciful. Yeah. They were just going straight in and killing them all. And we see Grey Worm notices this too.
Yeah, I think I was most affected by the parts where, the good guys were even slaughtering the innocent, like, women and children as well.
Innocents, yeah. Like, well, they weren't even just killing them; they were like raping them, and they were like pillaging them.
Like, and then Jon and Davos are sharing this look of just like, what the fuck,
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck. Look, I just want to say, this is like a D&D moment when you guys are just murder hobos.
Yeah,
just fucking killing them. Like, what the fuck are you doing? But no, we get these two people. Yeah, they're just seeing everyone die, and I thought it was so brutal, but it was so Game of Thrones when we saw the Unsullied and the Northmen killing the Lannisters as we see limbs are torn apart, their hands are ripped, their shoulders, their entire arms are ripped off, their heads decapitated, stabbed through hearts, everything. Complete slaughter of people, just completely killed straight there as we see them all die. Yeah, we see all that, and all this happens. But yeah,
Then even like John like kills a Northman like to protect that
well,
lady.
yeah, and just like he does that obviously to save her. But yeah, it's such a fucking, it's just so ridiculous to what happened.